My name is Jennifer Igwe. Welcome to another interesting episode of Morning Ride. We'll be talking today about the unlawful detention of people in various prisons and how the legal aid can help set a lot of them free. So to talk more on this very interesting topic, I have with me a barrister, a legal aid expert, and is no other than Promise Asikpo. Welcome to Morning Ride.
Okay, thank you. Good morning.
Now, when we talk about unlawful detention, because I know I one time went with one of the chief justice in one of the states to one of the prison and saw some people who said, for instance, they were wondering, or it was a case of two fighting, and they were detained for a very long time. I mean, what kind of signal does that send about a society?
Well, that situation is an awful situation. It's a situation that should not have a place in Nigeria in this present 21st century, because the law clearly provides for the protection of the fundamental rights of individuals. Like you have in the Constitution, Chapter 4 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, precisely in Section 35, which provides for the rights of the liberty of every individual. So when someone is reasonably suspected to have committed a crime, the person can be lawfully detained in police custody, for instance, but he must be arraigned before a court or a competent court within a reasonable time, not only 24 hours where the court is closed, within 40 radius kilometer. And where the person is not arraigned before the court, the person ought to be released on bail, pending when the police can carry out that act.
But when they arrest and detain people like that, it also leads to a prison congestion. I think that's one of the reasons why we have prison congestion. I mean, if you are in a situation like that and you're already in the prison, I mean, what can you do? Or is it a case of, okay, let me just resign to my fate and stay here until they remember me?
No, you have a right to redress. Okay, like I know clearly that in Nigeria, under the various criminal procedure laws of the state, for instance, the Administration of Criminal Justice Law of Lagos State, okay, it provides for a situation where the police prosecutor can arraign a suspect before the magistrate, okay, based on a report, and where the magistrate deems it that the person there is a reasonable suspicion that he committed an offense, he can be ordered to be remanded in prison custody, pending when the person will be charged before a competent court, most likely a high court or the federal high court. In such a situation where the person exceeds 30 days, the law provides that the magistrate shall mandatorily order his release unless a good cause is shown by the Director of Public Prosecution or the Commissioner of Police as to the continued detention pending when he will be arraigned. Where that is not done after 30 days and some other conditions follow, he ought to be released mandatorily. So in such a case, a lawyer, if he's represented by a lawyer, the lawyer ought to bring an application for the release, and that is what we do as legal aid officers. Okay, we tend to carry out such services to indigent accused persons who are.
But have you had any successes in doing this?
I've recorded success in some of them with my team members. However, the main challenge that we have in this project is the fact that we encounter a lot of adjournments in courts. Okay, not necessarily because of the fault of the judges, but at times because of the maybe the corruption in the system, maybe judicial personnel who may be negligent in some of their responsibilities. They may not tender you with the records of proceedings in time. So because of that, you cannot prepare yourself to carry out the action in time, or demand for little or some corrupt things like that. So, but there are certain steps taken by the government. Like recently, we have the bill for the repeal of the existing laws, okay, by the House of Reps. Okay, the Administration of Criminal Justice Law in the acts in the country. So these are the aspects that we tend to check all these things and ensure that we have an effective system in place in the country.
But when you talk about effective system, is it that what we have on ground right now cannot really be described as effective?
No, I always pointed out clearly that when laws were made, okay, the framers, the legislators, the people that framed the laws actually had good foresight before framing the laws. At times, it's because of maybe changes over time tend to make the certain provisions of the law inapplicable. And on the other hand, we have the human factor, okay? People tend to abuse the loopholes, maybe take advantage of the loopholes in the law. But I would say clearly and strongly that the laws in Nigeria, at least fairly, is good. Only that we have not been able to reform ourselves individually. But at the stance now, the criminal justice is not that efficient because it was promulgated very long time ago, and now with the prevailing situation, there is need for reform. But I also add that the most important aspect of reform is our orientation. Okay, because even if you have a good law in place, if you don't have a good mindset, if you don't have that culture of discipline, you are still going to encounter an ineffective system, just as it is where we are complaining about the law.
So what solutions do you prefer?
Yes. I would actually prefer that we, the stakeholders in the administration of justice, that's the lawyers, the police, the judiciary personnel, the judges, every person, even the public, we are supposed to be conscious, we are supposed to be proactive, we are supposed to be disciplined, we are supposed to avoid corruption in the process so that we can render our best services and ensure that justice is done. Because as it has been declared by in plethora of cases, the Supreme Court has always held that justice must not only be done, but it must be seen to be done.
When you say justice must be seen to be done, can you please explain that?
Yeah.
Because I know that sometimes in Nigeria you wait for justice forever, and at a point, knowing how we behave in Nigeria, at a point when the justice is not forthcoming, you just give up and say, I leave everything in the hands of God. So I want you to explain what you mean by that.
What I mean by justice must be seen to be done, first of all, it must be substantial justice first, then second, it must be justice according to law, okay, and third, it must be the justice that is not delayed, because they also say that justice delayed is justice denied. So for example, there shouldn't be incessant adjournments in cases in courts, okay. So where you put up an effective system to check that, at least all know that if a matter is commenced in court, it should be concluded within maybe 3 to 6 months. That will fairly give you the knowledge of where it will start and when it will end. Like based on the research conducted recently in Lagos State, the Ministry of Justice has been stated that matters take 5 to 9 years from commencement of the institution of the matter in court up to the conclusion, and that is not fair enough. So if the stakeholders are active and take their various responsibilities strongly, we could have a situation where we can avoid these situations and we'll have a very effective system.
And I'm also wondering, if for instance I'm walking on the streets and I am arrested for maybe wandering or some offenses which sometimes you cannot even explain by the police, and they want to take me to the police station and I don't know my right, it's a bad situation.
Okay.
So do you advise Nigerians, for instance, to take time to read the law? I mean, what advice can you give to Nigerians?
Okay, I'll do that. First of all, I want to just point it is clear that wandering is no longer an offense under the criminal justice system in Nigeria. But
today they arrest a lot of people for wandering.
That is a clear infraction of fundamental human beings of those victims, and they have a right to redress. They can commence an action by fundamental rights enforcement against the persons, that's the police officer who indulge in this abuse. Then, what I also advise Nigerians is that most of us are literate. Even the ones that are not literate, we can read and write in maybe in the local dialect or listen to Wazobia or other programs. We should always try to keep abreast with the law, with changes in the law. We could have access to the constitution, read, at least fairly we'll be able to know our rights. Then also seek the advice of lawyers. We also carry out campaigns, sensitization programs. My legal aid team, we do this, and by that we advise people to tune in so that they can learn one or two things from it. So it's a right, it's the fundamental rights of a Nigerian citizen to be free from abuse by the police. I've had a situation where I went for a right enforcement at the police station. I met a lot of police officers who wanted to checkmate me. They didn't want me to have free access to free my legal aid clients. But at the second day I went to the police, the guy recognized me. Has been seeing me on TVs, on programs like this. He told me he had a problem. He had a problem with employment. I needed me to advocate for him because he sees me, he knows I'm an activist and an advocate. And then I told him clearly, the last time I came here to defend the right of a citizen who you wrongly detained, you were not cooperative. And
the person needed help.
Yeah, and he needed help, and I came on to enforce his right. You were not cooperative, and now you want me to render services. So what I'm trying to say is that this life is a social web, okay? Injustice somewhere is injustice everywhere.
Yeah.
So police officers are supposed to be sensitive to, because one day they also need assistance.
Or somebody related to them.
Yeah. So we should be conscious about this and we should be our brother's keeper.
Thank you for coming to Morning Ride. And I must advise Nigerians. In fact, sometimes you see they sell them bookshops around the country, the Nigerian Constitution. I don't think it's very expensive. It's like 1,000 or 500. Please buy it and take time to study so that you know your right as a Nigerian. We'll take a break, and when we return, we'll be talking to our next guests.